All right. Good evening, listeners. Welcome to Motley Crude, episode 17. I'm Kevin. Glad to be with you guys tonight. This evening with me, I've got Andrew. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Awesome. And then back from whatever hellscape he was stuck in, we've got Ryan. How you doing, man?
Much better.
Awesome. Perfect. So this evening, we are going to be obviously doing the second part of the High Elf Arcane Journal review. So we'll be focusing on the Sea Guard Garrison for this episode. Before we get to that, let's just go through what's new in everybody's hobby. So, Ryan, since you missed the last episode, you get to go first. So what have you been up to over the last two to 3 weeks?
I built Hans von Lowenhack
Nice.
and the metal witch hunter, the one with the pistol.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I built those. And then otherwise I was just fiddling around getting ready to play in an event that was run here in Kingston, but unfortunately due to case of food poisoning the day before, I didn't get to go. But I went and checked it out, said hi to people and stuff. But
Nice.
yeah, that's really about it. Been busy with kind of work stuff. So,
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Um, and Andrew, what's new on your hobby table since our last episode?
Well, it's only been a few days, so I actually haven't had time to do any sort of hobby or anything.
Okay, that's fine. So on my end, I played a single game since we last spoke. I played into Cleary and his big brick of Tomb Guard, as well as 3 Necrotechs to give everybody 1,000,000 attacks. So that was a fun game. I basically had no ability to win that game on points. So I was going for a draw or maybe like just manage an 11-9 or something. However, I screwed myself over in by poorly placing one of my units, and it got wind blasted off the board. And that was basically the only points that were scored all game, and I lost. I think it was a 12-8. So good game to Cleary, and then I was just upset at kicking myself for just basically losing the game for no good reason. So so that was my gaming experience since the last episode. And then I've been doing some hobby also. So started working on a unit of Marauder Horsemen for my Wolves of the Sea. The first model in that unit is basically done. I'm going to finish it off completely right after this episode. And then I've also been building and converting a bunch of models. So I converted up a Chaos Lord on Dragon using the Storm Drake kit from Age of Sigmar from the Stormcast range, and then just some chaos stuff. So I think that one looks pretty good. And then I also built I built Friedel. I think she's a sick model. Like in real life, she looks fantastic. And then I also converted up a BSB and just built a few other things. So yeah, it's been only a few days, but I've been busy hammering away at the old hobby. So good stuff. Um, all right. So before we jump into the main segment of this episode, let's just talk about news and upcoming events. So no news or rumors really this week. It hasn't been very long since our last episode, so there is that. However, it's been a few weeks since we've gone over some of the events that are coming up in our neck of the woods over the next few months. So Ryan, I'm going to turn it over to you to sort of go through the schedule.
okay, so the next suite of events that I'm tracking is 15 March. There's an event at FDB on the other side of the river in the greater Ottawa area. There's an event on 16 March at Nexus in Kingston. Jumping from that, we've got square-based in-person The Resurrection or whatever it's being called,
Yes.
1920 April in at X Planet Games in Toronto, or Toronto adjacent.
Yeah.
After that, we've got our lovely Canhammer team tournament on 3-4 May here in Ottawa. And then we've got Danny's event at Canadian Tabletop Championship towards the end of the month in May. And then potentially an event in June. Details to be confirmed on that.
Nice. Are you going to be hitting any of the events up, Ryan?
I'm gonna come help. Well, I'm gonna try and go to the one on the 16th in Kingston.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna help Andrew with team tournament. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna try and play at CTC. And then
Nice.
the mystery event in June, I will be TOing if it occurs. So
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I'm trying to head to the one on the 15th of March. We'll see. And then obviously I'm lined up for CHTT. CTC, I've got a buddy coming up from the States for that one, who's probably going to be staying at my house. So I kind of am committed to going also. And then we'll see about June. I don't know about the mystery event either, so I can't commit at this point. Andrew, you going to play in any of these, or are you just focusing on the TOing?
I might be able to do the one in June since
Hockey will
the
be
NH
over. Yeah.
hockey will be over, and basically once April hits, like the th- I think the NHL season goes to like the second week of April, and then it's basically like nothing all summer. So
Yeah.
I'll actually
Yeah,
have a
because
real
obviously the
plan.
Senators aren't going to make the playoffs. So
Well, so the joke at work for all of us who aren't actually part of the NHL
yeah,
side of the team, we're all like, "Oh man, we hope they lose so we get like summer comes early because otherwise we just gotta keep
fair.
working, right?"
Yeah, fair. That makes sense. Okay, that was the hockey segment of the podcast for you listeners out there.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So let's switch gears here slightly and talk about the Arcane Journal. So Ryan, you didn't get the opportunity to give us your sort of hot takes or 1,000-foot overview of what you thought the journal was like in its entirety last episode. So I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Danny and the team here. Is what are your overall thoughts on the Arcane Journal? Do you like what it's bringing to the table? Do you think it opens up new playstyles for the High Elves? And then do you think it's on par with the other Arcane Journals out there, basically a hit or a miss from your perspective?
I think the army ideas are cool. I don't necessarily like exactly how they were implemented all the time, and I find the more I read into the narrative that's being presented in the book, I just got confused about like what it is. Anyway, like I like the options. They're neat options. I just don't like none of them are like sparking anything for me.
Okay,
Doesn't and that doesn't mean that it's like a bad thing. I'm also just like not a high elf person. So
fair.
that's,
Yeah, yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Okay, fair. No, that's cool. And I think that you're probably going to align with sort of the analysis that we had last episode, where I think we covered the have half of the book last week, and now we're going to be doing the have not half of the book. So it's not one of those books where everything is built equally for sure. But I agree with you. I think it's an interesting one, and it brings a lot of cool stuff to the table. Okay. So just for our listeners out there, if you didn't listen to our last episode, how we structure these reviews is we do obviously one Army of Infamy at a time. So today we'll be covering the Sea Guard Garrison Army of Infamy. So we'll be talking obviously about army composition and rules. Then we'll be looking at all the new unit entries that fit in with that army. So in this case, it includes Ishaya Vest, the new character, the garrison commander. We're going to be doing the Stormweaver with the Sea Guard Garrison, just because thematically it fits more into that Army of Infamy than the other one. Then we're going to be looking at Ship's Company and the Merworm. And then finally, we'll be looking at magic items specific to the Sea Guard Garrison list only, because last time we covered all of the sort of general magic items that were added and the ones for the Cracian War Host. So we were just going to be doing Sea Guard Garrison today. So, without further ado, let's jump into it. Let's start with just overall thoughts on the Sea Guard Garrison and what you guys think about it. So, I'll start with Andrew. What are your thoughts on this Army of Infamy? Do you think it's thematic? Do you think it's a fun army to play? Does it bring something that we sort of needed to the table on the High Elf side? New play styles, that kind of stuff, or basically anything else you're thinking? Just like your overall thoughts.
Yeah, yeah. So looking at it, like I do think it's super fucking thematic. You know, I can see like if you're playing this, how you can get that sort of like, oh, here's like the high elf, essentially marine list, which is really cool. Um, I think it'd be really fun to play in a non-competitive setting. The list itself is very limiting on what, like, sort of the good choices you want to take, which we'll get into later, obviously. But I think it might struggle in sort of like a competitive or tournament scene. But that doesn't take away from the fact that like this feels very different than um, sort of the baseline list or even the Tracian list. And I think like if you're doing like sort of like a narrative campaign or something, like this would be a really fun list to run. Um, those are kind of my just general thoughts on the list. What do you think, Ryan?
I totally agree with that. I like again, it looks very neat and it's got some tricks to it, but it's not like it leans into a thing that's already not great in the game. Toughness 3, low armor infantry rectangles. Um, and it doesn't really do that in a way that fixes any of the inherent problems with them. And also, like, if your whole list is just like a 900 point block of Sea Guard, this is going to be a very boring game.
Yeah, and not particularly good either. Just from like a game perspective.
People are like, oh, they get fire and flee. And I'm like, sweet, so I can run them down faster?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I agree with you, man. Like, this is this one is a bit rougher in terms of competitive play for the Sea Guard Garrison. So I really enjoy the narrative behind it. You know, I think it sells itself in terms of you've got this down on its luck garrison force that's living on the fringes of the high elf world, as it were. That's doesn't have all the cool toys and everybody's got beat up equipment, and Ashaya Vess is wearing a pirate eye patch because she hasn't been magically fixed up or whatever. So like this is a cool narrative. Like Sea Guard is cool. Like this is all great, but yeah, I don't think it really comes together for a really effective experience on the tabletop, unfortunately. However, I will say like this is not like a Heralds of Darkness situation where it feels like the Army of Infamy is half baked, in the sense that they've got 2 or 3 rules, 2 of those are restrictions, and then they have 1 new unit entry, and everybody's like, yeah, I could already do all of this in the regular army anyways, so why do you even exist, Heralds of Darkness? This is like not that kind of situation. You can tell that like the studio put a lot of effort into designing the garrison list. There's a ton of rules, there's a lot of unit entries, the theme is cool, but it just sort of lacks the oomph that you need to be able to play this in a context that's not, as Andrew was saying, I'm home with my buddy and like we're just going to run this because it's cool. Like if you want to play it out in the sort of in against the broader population of Warhammer the Old World players, they're probably going to come a little bit short on this one. So yeah, it's a bit of a disappointment, but not because of certainly not because of theme or play style or anything like that. There's just something missing. Is sort of my take. Does that make sense to you guys?
Yep.
absolutely.
Okay. So all right, let's move on a little bit. I'll pass the ball right back to you, Ryan, to talk about army composition and the list overall.
Okay. So, the Sea Guard Army of Infamy, you can have 50% characters to include Sea Guard Garrison commanders and Storm Weavers, and 0 to 1 Dragon Mage, High Elf Noble, or High Elf Mage per 1,000 points. In the core section, you must take 33% of your army as Lothern Sea Guard and or Ship's Company, and 0 to 1 unit of Shadow Warriors per 1,000 points. You can take up to 50% special with Lothern Sky Cutters, 0 to 2 Great Eagles per 1,000 points, 0 to 3 Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers per 1,000 points. In the rare section, up to 33% of your army can be Illyrian Reavers, 0 to 1 Flamespire or Frostheart Phoenix per 1,000 points, or Merworms. You can make either a High Elf Noble or a Sea Guard Garrison Commander your BSB. And that's the entire army list. So it's extremely limited. And with that said, like it broadly matches the was it Storm of Chaos Sea Guard Garrison that existed before.
Yeah.
It's like pretty much the same things. I think the biggest difference is just that like it's been tweaked in such a way that you don't have access to all of the flying mounts that historically the character would have been able to take. And also the addition of Illyrian Reavers when before it was like everything was infantry or flying and you couldn't have any cavalry of any kind. But sure, boat like they just got ride on, ride off. Just good old like elven row fucking
Yeah.
boats.
Exactly.
It's fine. So, but like looking at it, like it's still got the theme there. You've got the Lothern Rangers, I think they're called the Shadow Warriors. You can take in core representing the dudes that are out doing Aragorn stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And you've got lots of flying things and bolt thrower. Like you could have so many bolt throwers,
Yeah, for sure.
flying bolt throwers, ground bolt throwers,
Magic
and
weapon
then
bolt throwers. Yeah.
like you just have all of this. So you
Unfortunately,
could
for
have a
some
lot of
reason, there's strength
yeah,
5 in this army, but yes.
of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just have a lot of like weird crap in your army, but it's very limited to what you can do. Like you're capped with a level 3 wizard, and your other wizard options are level 2s or a level 2 on an impetuous dragon. Um,
Yeah. No good.
like yeah. Anyway, like it doesn't do anything for me personally. It's extremely limited, but it is very thematic and like if you wanted to do this like Marine Regiment landing force type elf thing, fucking go for it.
Yeah, and they're doubling down on that marine landing force element. You saw those 3 narrative scenarios that they released this week, all centered around basically this Army of Infamy and the Wolves of the Sea. So like the studio is all in on this.
Yep.
Good.
Anyway, that's
Andrew,
my thoughts.
sorry? Yeah, okay, good. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
I already gave them.
Okay, sorry, my bad. So yeah, on my end, for the army composition, like there's a few things here. So firstly, in terms of characters, like not having, and this is like sounding like a broken record here as we talk about Armies of Infamy throughout our old world journey there, but like not having level 4 casters, not having any lords is a massive downside. And not having anything to really replace them is rough. Then 33% core is always something you don't want to see in an Army of Infamy, I guess. But in this case, it's probably worse because you're not really getting much for your core slot that you really, really want to take. So you don't have any woodsman, Creation woodsman type situation in core here. So it's you're gonna be a bunch of ships company and Sea Guard, which are I think middling. So yeah, not ideal. And then I think you basically lose all of the with this army composition. You lose all of the hard hitters from the high elf list. So you don't have any of those sick ass strength 7 dragons. You don't have any cavalry, which you guys know I'm not super sold on for the high elves, but anyways, they're always in competitive lists. And then you don't have any Sisters of Averlorn. And then you're not really getting much to replace those 3 elements with. So I guess you're sort of left, or when I look at this army composition, I'm left standing thinking, what do I actually want to put in this list for 2,000 points? So I think for me, it's a bit of a miss on the army composition side. Yeah. So moving on slightly, let's talk about the special rules for the army. We're going to be looking at these 5 different rules individually. So Ryan, I'll let you go with the first one, which is Armies of the Sea Lord.
Armies of the Sea Lord. Characters in the Sea Garrison Army of Infamy are able to take the Elven honors and may only choose Shadow Stalker, Pure of Heart, and Sea Guard. So you can only take the ones that let you join the units that exist in this army. So none of those are ones that let you do cool things.
Yeah.
One of them's mandatory to join Sea Guard. So yeah.
Yeah, not ideal. Any thoughts on this Andrew?
That's a pretty rough choice.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no free creation Great Blades coming along or anything, eh?
No.
Yeah.
You'd think they would have gave them like the I guess it wouldn't fit for the theme, but the one with the that lets you join Phoenix Guard, because you can already take Phoenixes anyway.
Sure.
At least you can mount your character on a Phoenix that way, but nope, can't.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
there. I agree. There isn't much here to play with. I mean, the Sea Guard honors. So your Sea Guard Garrison commanders sort of count as already having them for the purposes of joining units. So that one's sort of already spoken for, and you're going to see. And then otherwise, I don't think you'll really be using Shadow Stalker very much, frankly, because of Shadow Warriors are okay, but they're not. They don't have they don't have open orders, so you can't really use them in a big unit anyways. So you're probably not putting characters in a tiny unit of Shadow Warriors. So you're probably not going to see that. And then I guess everybody just defaults to Pure of Heart anyways if you're not going in the Sea Guard unit. So it's a bit of a non-rule like it was for the last Army of Infamy.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Shadow Stalker gives you a free Bow of Avalorn,
Fun.
but prevents you from taking any non-magical weapon other than that. So
Rough.
you're locked to a hand weapon?
Yeah,
What?
that's terrible. Yeah, that's terrible. You're not taking Shadow
It
Stalker, let's
costs
be honest.
20 points.
Yeah. For some reason, it cost 20 points. Like Pure of Heart is so much better.
It gives you like 5 special rules too, but
Sure. Okay. So let's a bit of a non-rule in this one. So Andrew, over to you for From the Mists.
From the Mists, after deployment, but before deploying units with the Scout special rule, or moving units with the Vanguard special rule, you may immediately remove a single deployed unit belonging to your army from the battlefield and replace it anywhere in your deployment zone. This is actually a pretty cool rule. It allows you to sort of either fake out your opponent during deployment, or if you misplayed something or mispositioned something and you're like, oh shit, well, it's too late to take it back now, you can kind of correct that, or just make sure you get that favorable sort of matchup across the board so you don't have to do some weird, like, I'm going to march across my whole lines to attack the unit I actually want this unit to attack. So I think it's a cool rule.
Yeah.
It would be better in a different army, though.
Agreed. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this one?
I like it because I like deployment shenanigans, but at the same time, it's like the table's not so big that like moving your unit of Sea Guard a foot to the right isn't gonna like stop my Pegasus Knights from running into you.
Sure, especially when they have the kind of range they're packing.
Exactly. So it's one of those like it's cool, and I guess like again, if you lean into the like I have one big unit of Sea Guard and I'm gonna put it here, and then I'm gonna move it to the other side of the table. Sure, but at the same time, your opponent can also play that game and just be like, I deploy prepared for both options. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
But it's neat. Like, I appreciate the existence of this rule, even though I don't think it's helpful. Kind of an odd statement, but
yeah. Well, I think it's a little bit more than not helpful in the sense that it probably lets you fix a mistake if you make one in deployment, if you're not set up great to absorb your opponent, you can shift something over to sort of patch that over, which is good and useful. And then you can also, as Andrew pointed out, bait your opponent's deployment and set up in a way, and then knowing fully that you're going to move a certain piece to another part of the board. I think to maximize that, though, you need to have something really impactful to move around. And I'm not sure you have a ton of impactful pieces in this army. Like we'll get to like Sea Guard and stuff later. But I don't think they're necessarily the right bit to be moving. So you're probably going to go to like a Lord on Griffin or something, which is fine, but it's that in and of itself probably doesn't reshape the whole game. But it's a good little trick that you can pull out. So overall, like I appreciate the rule, but as I think Andrew said there, probably would be more. Well, I know would be more useful in other armies. So okay. I'm going to take the next one, which is from the Storm Clouds. So let's bring that back up here. So from the Storm Clouds, basically what this one does is 0-1 Lothern Skycutters per 1,000 points in a Sea Guard Garrison Army of Infamy, including Skycutters taken as character mounts, may have ambushers. The ambusher special rule for 10 points per model. This one I think is okay. Because so I think Skycutters are, so whenever I've faced Skycutters, they've always done some work, just because they're like a fly 10 swift stride chariot, packing the stats that you would expect from a chariot. So they'll do stuff, and I don't hate having one pop up behind your enemy's lines or whatever. For I think they come stock at 90 points. So I think that's fine. But however, the army suffers from not having any way to modify the plus or minus roll of the ambusher special rule. So it's fine to have a single Skycutter or maybe two in ambush for 90 to 180 or 200 points or whatever that can pop up behind enemy lines. And if you don't roll that 4 up, that's fine. I think because you have no way to modify that dice roll, you're probably not going to use it on any sort of beat stick or significant character that you would mount on a Skycutter, just because there's nothing that feels worse than having your souped up, I guess, noble in this army list spend 4 turns waiting for his ambush roll and then do essentially nothing for the game. So yeah, I think it's an okay rule. And you're probably going to see Sea Guard Garrison players use it on a Skycutter or two, but it's probably not going to like be game defining or anything. So yeah, that's my take on this rule. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you just kind of nailed it right there. Like, it's cool, I guess. You might see it on one Skycutter, and having a Skycutter jump in, like, say, behind your enemy lines, like that could be potentially pretty shitty, because then you're getting impact hits and shit from behind if they get a charge off. But I don't think it's gonna be like, this is the thing that won me the game type move.
No.
I don't know. What do you think, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat here. Skycutters are just an interesting beast, and I'm real hit and miss with ambushers. I've found that there's kind of a break point on, like, if you have one ambusher, you just have to rely on it not having an effect until turn 5. And
Sure.
if you have, or you need to have lots of ambushers, and by pure weight of dice, expect some of them on turn 2. And I feel like a 100 and, what is it, like 60 some odd point heavy flying chariot not showing up until turn 5 is just not helping you.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I think so. I think you need to see the Skycutters on this list as like just a utility piece. Like they can pick up small units, lone wizards, and war machines. So use them in that sort of context. But as Andrew said, it's not like a game-winning thing or a game-defining piece, because they certainly can't pick up the heavy hitters on the other side either, right? So like I guess, Ryan, if that 90 to 180 points of whatever comes in early in the game, then great. You get to run down a few, I don't know, bombards or whatever, and then charge some archers, and that's all great. And if they don't come in, then your army can still fight with 19 to 1800 points, and that's it.
But you're also already fast enough to be able to just move to that side of the
Sure.
board.
Yeah, sure.
You're a flying chariot.
Yeah, move 10 too. Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree with that either. I think it'll depend on how your opponent is also set up and stuff. But yeah, I agree. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Andrew, can you walk us through Old World Rangers?
Yeah, if I can read it with the huge glare spot on the pic you sent me. Old World Rangers, 0-1 unit of Shadow Warrior units with a unit strength of 5. Let's guess. I can't
It's
see
up to 10. Up to 10. Yeah.
Up to 10 or less in a Sea Guard Garrison Army of Infamy may have the Ambusher's special rule for free. Cool. Again, I guess it's wanting you to lean more into that Ambusher thing. With the Sky Cutters. Shadow Warriors already have Scout though, don't they? So like, you can kind of put them where you want to begin with. And as we said before, because there is no way to sort of dick around with the ambush roll.
Yeah.
Like, I think you'd be not in a good position if you try to put too much into ambush with this list, just because you kind of need all your pieces in place going into it, just because they're not the strongest units in the High Elf book, so you kind of need like everyone, all hands on deck type deal to kind of try and deal with things and mitigate your enemy. So I guess it's cool again if you're, putting like a small unit of Shadow Warriors in reserve or in ambush to try to like, I don't know, gank some wizard hiding in the back or deal with war machines, but I don't know. Doesn't seem super impactful.
Fair. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I don't really like. Again, like I could see some weird play where you've got 2 ambushing Sky Cutters and 20 ambushing Rangers, but like it's purely a theme situation at that point. It's not like a supported tactical choice.
Also, I do gotta throw a bit of shade, like being a Dark Elf player, Dark Elf shades are basically the Dark Elf version of Shadow Wars, but they can just get ambush, and they have great weapons and repeater crossbows for like the same price as Shadow Warriors, so they're just kind of better at it.
Yeah, Shadow Warriors are not great, frankly. It's just real good ballistic skill, and then that's about it.
And like Shadow Warriors can also already get ambush. This just lets 2 of them get it for free. So it's not even a rule they didn't have access to.
Save you 20 points on the army or whatever.
Wow, fancy.
Yeah, I don't know. So for me, I prefer Ambusher on the Sky Cutters than on the Shadow Warriors. So I guess my take is, if you're going to put a unit in ambush, and I'm not even sure it's worth it most of the time, but let's say you are, I much rather have a hybrid unit that could do range and close combat effectively. So, when it pops on, it could fire some shots, and then you want it with a high strength, ideally, weapon to charge something in the rear, either the squishy bits of the enemy army or just a rear charge, and start doing some work. The problem with it also works with to a lesser degree with a melee only unit, in that they'll just charge and kill something the second turn. But I feel like a range only unit is kind of a shitty thing to ambush with, because the range that Shadow Warriors, for instance, can shoot at means they could be pumping out shots essentially from turn 1, and if they're stuck in ambush, they're not using that great ballistic skill that they have. And then when they do come in what is really the advantage of them sort of being on another portion of the table? They're still pumping out the exact same shots at strength 3 that they were before. It's just, maybe they'll get better angles and be able to put shots on something that they weren't before. But just shooting war machines with ballistic skill, shooting low strength is very hard to do. Like most war machines are toughness 6 or around that area, and then when you're hitting them with strength 3, it's just really rough to get rid of them. So I don't think this is a great rule. I mean, sure, I'll take it for free there, no problem, but I don't think Shadow Warriors are really ideally suited to be ambushing from a game perspective. So yeah, okay. Let's move on to the next one, though. Hopefully a little bit better, and that's Pride of the Fleet. Over to you, Ryan.
This is 0 to 1 per 1,000 unit of Sea Guard and have drilled for free. So this, as much as we are going to spend the next hour deriding this entire army, drilled Sea Guard is just a hilariously solid unit as a concept, orphaned in an army that can't support or employ it properly. Because now basically you have a unit that before it moves can get wider or narrower, and then when it gets charged can shoot you and get wider or narrower, and so and can fight in multiple ranks in every direction, or at least 3 directions anyway.
Yes.
So it can just do everything with that combination of rules. It's just the rest of your army is not suited to help that.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's rough. I like them as a core Sea Guard. It's something you could build around. When you take them in big numbers, you can anchor your line pretty well with them. And then when you stack a bunch of movement tricks on them, where they can basically reform twice essentially if they get charged a turn, like that's all great. I think though what this Army of Infamy pushes you towards is building a massive unit of Sea Guard for a bunch of reasons that we'll cover later. But I don't think they're really all that well suited for that kind of role, because their damage they have all the movement tricks and all the reforming and all the shifty stuff that they could do that Ryan just covered, but their damage output is probably not high enough to sort of build your entire list around, but the Army of Infamy pushes you in that direction. So I guess that was more of a general comment. For the specific Pride of the Fleet rule, I mean, Sea Guard getting drilled is great. So you can go from basically you can open up by 10 models a turn if you get charged, which just lets you completely redesign your formation every turn. So that's cool. But all my previous comments regarding Sea Guard are still standing there. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's neat. Gives the Sea Guard, which is probably going to be sort of the majority of what you're going to be taking, at least if you're trying to fill your core allotment. So it makes them really cool. But like you said, they just don't have the damage output to kind of really take advantage of this, even with standing and shooting to get a little bit extra combat res maybe. It's not enough. It's just a lot of strength 3, AP nothing attacks, right? So you're not going to get a lot out of this, even though it is a cool rule. And it kind of, I like that it's thematic, because, Sea Guard are supposed to be the best of the best of sort of the High Elves baseline troops. They're the US Marines of the High Elf army, right? So it's cool for them to make that unit a little bit better and give it a little bit of a bump, but it's still a T3 strength 3, 4 up, 5 up armor save unit. It's just not going to help it survive or do any damage. So I don't know, kind of disappointing. It's a cool rule though.
Yeah, and it's a fun sort of design space for them to be in, for sure. But what are your thoughts on? Oh, sorry, no, you already covered it, Ryan. But I will give you the next one. So looking at all these rules together, the 5 that we just covered, Ryan, what are like your overall thoughts on sort of how this all comes together and impacts the army? Do you think that these 5 rules are sort of impactful from a competitive perspective, or do you think it's basically just all flavor for the army?
I think it's all flavor. Like honestly, the only 2 rules that are really going to come into play in any sort of like competitive conceptualization of the army are from the mists and Pride of the Fleet. Um, the but yeah, it's all mostly just thematic. Um, I also don't think again, I don't think the whole army synergizes with its own theme. Um,
Agreed.
but I also kind of have this weird like Wolves of the Sea explained the ambushers very logically as being like the parties that landed further up the coast and made their way inland and are now like, you know, kind of like hooking around to harass
Yeah,
the
yeah,
rear of the enemy force. And like, okay, I get the Rangers and I get, I guess, coming from the sky, but like,
yeah,
I don't know, like, I feel like this should have been less ambushery and more like seize the beachheady. Um,
sure.
and it's just like, it's not like nothing about the collection of army rules is screaming, you know, we land on your beach and take your stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
Yeah, like they
and
should have had like shield wall or something instead to represent them sort of like slowly
not
marching
getting
in from the
pushed back
beach.
into the ocean.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
drowning. Yeah. Yeah, I guess, yeah, exactly. So you could have done it either as the beachhead, or garrison to me speaks to holding a point, essentially. So maybe some sort of rules for in your defensive zone, or something like that, your deployment
Well,
zone or
and that
something.
and that's where like the narrative from what has been disclosed that's found in the book gets very confusing where like it's super unclear if a Sea Guard garrison that they're referring to in this situation are the island fortresses just off of the old world where like the Sea Guard are basically picketing the
Yeah, yeah,
entire perimeter of the old world, um, or are the Sea Guard, conducting expeditionary raids into Bretonia and whatever else, or are the Sea Guard the crew of literal boats that are like dismantled to do things, and like it's trying to be all 3 of those things and like not succeeding at being any of them.
yeah.
Um,
From a converting narrative into like tabletop rules bit, it's not working. Agreed.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Andrew, what are your thoughts on this, on all the rules taken together?
Um yeah, like Ryan said, it's very disjointed, I find. Um and you like yeah, like again, it doesn't I don't know, for me it doesn't seem like a cohesive rule set, especially with the models given. Like some stuff is cool. Um but I'm having a hard time finding out or like figuring out how all this put together really helps the army shine. Other than it's very thematic to sort of that Navy force that I guess it's trying to represent, which is cool, but at the same time, I think you'd want to win games as well.
Yeah, or at least have a fighting chance into most things.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I look at these rules all together, I mean, the first one, Armies of the Sea Lord, is like meh. You're already taking Pride of Heart, Pure of Heart, sorry, or the Sea Guard, Elven Honor to put units in the Sea Guard units. So it's a bit of a meh cool rule. Like it was already sort of happening before. Then you have 2 ambush rules, one of which is on a unit that I don't think is a great ambusher. Then you get Drilled Sea Guard, which is cool, but won't win you games on its own. And then the big competitive piece is, I guess, from the mists, which lets you patch over some mistakes that you may have done or just bait your opponent. But not yeah, I think that on its own, it's not enough. From the rules you're getting, like there's just not enough there to bring it together on the table. It's just a bunch of cool stuff that doesn't really amount to much. Like just so essentially just good flavor is what I'm going to say. Um, okay, so we've covered those rules. Let's move on to the units. I'm going to take the first one here. So the first unit is one that slots into core, and that's Ship's Company. So Ship's Company is essentially a spin-off of your elven militia, whether that's archers or spearmen. So Ship's Company is movement 5, weapon and ballistic skill 4, strength and toughness 3, 1 wound, initiative 4, 1 attack, leadership 8 models for 9 points apiece. They come with hand weapons and war bows. The entire unit can replace their war bows with thrusting spears and shields, which, let's be honest, you're probably not going to do. You can obviously take champions with them, as well as a standard bearer and a musician. The entire unit may take light armor for an additional point. And then 0 to 1 per 1,000 points may replace open order with skirmishers for free, and then replace Valor of Ages special rule with veteran for 1 point a model. The unit comes with, it could be a detachment for your Sea Guard. It has Elven Reflexes and Valor of Ages, obviously, as all the elves do. It's evasive, it has Fire and Flee, and open order. So sort of my take on this is actually a unit that I like. So it's 1 point cheaper. I think it's just better than the Elven Archers or Spearmen because it's 1 point cheaper, and it comes with Skirmishers, it comes with Evasive, and it comes with Fire and Flee, if memory serves correctly, that the base unit doesn't have. I mean, Fire and Flee, as we're going to talk about that later, is a bit of a mixed bag there, but having evasive and having the opportunity to go skirmishers for free, I think those are just good benefits. So yeah, I don't hate Ship's Company. I think if you see somebody running, if you run into a Sea Guard Garrison player in the wilds, he's probably going to have Ship's Company. It's a solid all around, just you can fill core up with this and not be too upset that you have to take them. Smaller units as skirmishers with war bows, even though they're just strength 3, will just be able to pepper lightly armored or low toughness opponents across the table. So yeah, I don't hate them. They're not amazing. They're certainly not terrible. They're perfectly playable, and I think you'll see them in different lists for the army. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, like it's a good, I guess, quote unquote upgrade for either spearmen or archers from the base list. It's nice that you can sort of customize them a bit to how you want them to play. You can make them as you said, you can give them veteran, put them in open order with skirmishing. Like that's kind of cool. And then they have sort of access to all the regular, I guess, upgrades you could take if you wanted. Just baseline spearmen, you can do that pretty cheaply. So yeah, I dig them, but again, like these guys aren't going to win you games. They're just more like a budget Sea Guard that can't do everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, Ryan, what do you think?
So I'm very confused by the fact that they're a detachment and nothing in this army has the regimental unit rule.
Yeah, that's a bit of an oversight.
Because aside from again a purely thematic we're just gonna make an army of Ship's Company because I would just want a whole bunch of dudes with eye patches and peg legs
And
situation.
who doesn't? Yeah.
I know, right? But the only other use I could have thought of for them was if they could be a detachment to Sea Guard, then it turns into this situation where you charge the Sea Guard and you just eat like a bajillion arrows to the face from your skirmishing ship's company supporting the Sea Guard.
Yeah.
And I also am very sad that they spelt bosun phonetically and
Yes. The actual spelling of
correctly.
those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's a good point. So I was not thinking to take them as detachments at all. I was mainly looking at them as sort of an Empire archers analog, that they could just be in fives or maybe up to 10 models and just be like a good little utility piece that you can move around and get in the way of stuff and hold down forests and shit like that. Um, I wasn't really planning to use them along with the Brig of Sea Guard, but the fact that Sea Guard doesn't have regimental unit, and I'm just looking at it right now, you're entirely correct, Ryan, is for sure a miss. So if you're a big Sea Guard Garrison fan at home, make sure you write to the SDS studio and the FAQ at the FAQ email and ask them if that's intended or not, because that should probably like there needs to be a regimental unit to go along with these guys. Otherwise, it's a bit, as Ryan pointed out, strange.
well, plus, if they like, you could still use them for what you're describing as your intended purpose
Yeah, yeah,
and deploy them as a detachment
sure.
because because of that redeploy rule, you could
Oh,
drop
yeah, yeah,
them and then redeploy the Sea Guard, and then just like you used one drop, deployed 3 units. Later on, you redeploy, and now you're still holding down some forests and confusing the shit out of your opponent.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think first time you pull that on somebody, they're not gonna, for sure, they're not gonna see it coming. They're gonna, yeah, yeah. I guess that would be fine if another unit had regimental unit. Yeah.
Exactly.
So okay, all right. Let's move on to the Merworm. Ryan, can you walk us through that one?
Yeah. So all of its stats except initiative, attack, and leadership are 6.
Yeah.
Except ballistic skill, which is 0. It has initiative 3 at 4 attacks and has leadership 8 and costs 225 points. It's a behemoth, comes in a unit of 1, and is equipped with lashing talons and a serpentine tail, briny breath, and iridescent scales that count as heavy armor. It also has an abyssal cloak, close order, enfeebling cold, does D3 impact hits, is a large target, does D3 plus 1 stomp attacks, and causes terror. So its abyssal cloak causes -2 to hit against shooting at long range instead of -1. Enfeebling cold, when you're in base contact with it, you suffer -1 modifier to your strength, which is hilarious because it means that the second rank of spears doesn't suffer this modifier.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Um, or anything that can fight an extra rank, the second rank, or the dudes making 1 attack not in base contact are unaffected.
Yeah.
And then its talons are, strength 6, AP -1, armor bane 1. Its tail, you have to make at least 1 attack with the tail, and it's strength 8, AP -2, strike last. And unlike every other monster, the only hit once attack isn't like poison or damage 2 or anything cool.
Yeah.
And then the briny breath is strength 2, AP -2, breath weapon, and it's cut off at the bottom, but it seems to do like a -1 malice of some type to the
Yeah.
target. It's cool, but it's like ridiculously expensive compared to a giant chaos spawn. Um,
I don't know if
which
Giant Chaos Spawn is the right comparison unit though, because that one is arguably undercosted.
that's fair, but like,
It's no Charybdis, I'll give you that.
sure.
Yeah.
But even
It's
like
yeah.
what's one of their phoenixes cost? Like I'll use the cold ones.
Not 225.
Give me 2 seconds. Frostheart Phoenix, 205 points. So for 20 points more, you gain 1 wound
Sure.
and lose fly.
And lose fly. That's huge.
Swift stride. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
neat. It's just pricey.
Yeah, I think it's unfortunate. I like the model. I would love for it to be a little bit better. I think overall it's not great. I mean, as you said, Ryan, 225 points is pretty pricey for what you're getting here. I think the defensive profile on this guy is brutal. I mean, aside from the weapon skill there, but like the defensive profile is brutal because just having a 5-up armor save. No, so I've said this before on the show, but like if you're toughness 6 with a 5-up armor save, you essentially have no armor because anything that can wound you reliably at T6 is coming with AP 2, right? So, it's basically great weapons, and then you're losing all that armor anyways, and then you're just on straight wounds, which is not a great place to be in. You want to have a regen or a ward of some kind to just sort of back you up a little bit, especially for 225. No Swift Stride is going to really hurt it. It's just movement 6, and your basic foot elves are movement 5, and they're not charging that often. So good luck with this guy. I'm surprised to see weapon skill 6 on a monster though. That's good. So I guess these big boys here are like some really fantastic fencers or swordsmen because they have really high weapon skill. But aside from that, yeah, it isn't enough. I mean, sorry.
The Phoenixes have weapon skill 6 too.
Okay, all right. So I guess it's a high elf dumb monster thing. But I think like just like thematically, a phoenix would be a more nimble and agile creature than this big lumbering, semi-dragon aquatic creature. But anyways, Abyssal Cloak is cool. I mean, it'll help a little bit for like, some shooting, some ancillary shooting, but unfortunately, I think the main threat to this guy is like cannons, and it's not going to help with cannons at all. So yeah, not ideal. I like Enfeebling Cold. I mean, you could probably do something with that. So a pair of these guys, I think it would stack as far as I'm reading it right now. So, if you have 2 of these guys and you manage to somehow run them at a dragon, and then that dragon is strength 4, good luck doing anything at that point. So I guess it's a cool rule, but like a lot has to go right for you to be able to leverage it. So I don't think you're going to see this guy in Grand Army at all, unless you just want to take the model because it's cool. I think you're probably still going to see it though in the Sea Guard Garrison, and just because I think the army really, really struggles to get high strength attacks. And hey, the Merworm is strength 6 with 4 attacks, so there's that, and there's not much. I mean, you can give a great weapon to a noble, but I mean, aside from that, there's essentially no strength 6 in this army. So yeah, I mean, there's that, I guess, going for it. So you'll probably still see it in the Army of Infamy. Andrew, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you guys summed it up. Like, it's cool, I guess. And it is that source of strength 6, but in this list it's also competing with the Frostheart Phoenix, which kind of does the same stuff this does, but a little bit better. Unless you're really trying to take advantage of that enfeebling cold rule, but I don't think this is like, if you're just taking this to try to like use this against dragons and whatnot, like dragons just gonna avoid it.
For sure. But actually, they'll probably kill it, frankly.
Well, I think the dragon might struggle to kill it, because most dragons are strength 6 to begin with. So if it's dropping the strength down to 5, like then it's wounding on 5s. If some miracle you get 2 in against a dragon, all of a sudden that dragon's wounding on 6s, so it might struggle a bit. But any wounds it does get through, it's probably just gonna cut right through any armor, and then that
Yep.
doesn't take into account whatever character's sitting on top as well. Although
Yeah. And
realistically,
often
they're-
those Lord characters on dragons will be strength 7 with great weapons, so they'll be down to strength 6. They'll still wounded on 4s. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, I cut you in. I cut in there.
no, like that's all valid. So like again, I think the points be better spent on the Frost Hearts if you're looking for that, strength 6 attack.
Agreed. And it's so much more mobile too, right? Swift Stride, Fly 9 is a wholly different beast than Movement 6, no Swift Stride.
Yeah, and doesn't the Frost Heart also have a built-in ward? Maybe I'm thinking of something else.
Well, I could tell you it has full plate armor for some reason. It's more armor than this bad boy, so
And
so there's that.
Like last.
It's frozen.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, what was that, Ryan?
And it forces you to strike last.
Yeah, so okay, on Team Frostheart Phoenix. Sorry, Merworm. It's not going to work out. Okay, cool. Let's move on to the next thing. Andrew, can you walk us through the new leader unit, the Sea Guard Garrison Commander?
Yeah, so he comes in at 90 points. He has a movement 5, weapon skill 6, ballistic skill 7. That's pretty good. Strength 4, toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 5, 3 attacks, and leadership 9. He is infantry. He comes with hand weapon, warbow, and light armor built in. For special rules, he has accomplished archers, Elithmar weapons, naval discipline, strength first, valor of ages. Accomplished archers, that's not unique to him.
It is. Yeah, it is. It'll give I think fire and flee to a unit of Sea Guard that he's with.
Oh, that's kind of neat. He may be upgraded to before I go into upgrades, I guess I'll talk about his mounts. He can take the Lothran Skycutter for 90 points. I was about to say credits because I've been reading too many Necromunda books. He can take a Griffin for 130 points, a Great Eagle for 60, and then for upgrades, he can take the Cavalry Spear, which would apply to all these mounts, for 2 points. He can replace his Warbow with a Longbow. He can take a Shield, light armor. Oh, they replace light armor with heavy armor, and he can take up to 75 points of magic items. Not a bad little hero level character. Also, I believe he can be upgraded to be your BSB. Let me go back and check.
He can.
That.
Yes, he can.
Cool. So, I don't know. You might be able to do something cool with that in your Sea Guard unit with some of those fancy banners we talked about last game or last podcast. Otherwise, I can see him being like sort of like a little. It'd be nice if we'd be able to take a lance or a great weapon as opposed to that cavalry spear to bump him up to strength 6. I guess you can do that through magic items, and then just put him on a griffin, and he's kind of like a little utility unit to go bail units out of combats they might not want to be in. I kind of dig him. 90 points isn't bad for what you're getting, although I think if to get the most out of him, you'll want to mount him. Even with that accomplished archers rule, like Sea Guard's not the most defensible unit, and they don't have a lot of punch, so I think if you put him in a unit of Sea Guard, he's just going to get dragged down through combat res. So it's probably not the best place for him, even though you'd think he would, based on his special rules.
Fair. Yeah, Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, he's neat. Like, he exists. Like, but you're just in this weird spot where he's like, you lose access to a prince. You already have access to a noble. He's like a Baron type character, but he's also still only 2 wounds. So he's more like a noble plus than a prince minus. And I don't know. Like, you're gonna take him because he's just a better leadery option. But
Yeah.
But yeah, like, I don't know why I would ever take a longbow on him. And yeah, I'll echo the cavalry spur point. You're probably just gonna buy a magic weapon if he's mounted.
I mean, I guess if you want to take him like bare bones on foot, and then give him the longbow so he can hang out with those Sea Guard and just go like budget character with no magic upgrades or very little.
But he has a
Maybe.
warbow already. Why would I pay 4 points to make it a longbow when the rest of the unit has warbows?
I don't know, Ryan. I'm trying to
You
make this guy
probably
good.
would.
Actually, even better. You're paying 4 points to make him worse because he's strength 4. So if you switch the warbow out for a longbow, he gains range, but also decreases the strength of his archery.
Which is not where you
Well,
want to go. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think he's a thematic choice. I like him potentially as the BSB character because like this army list sort of shoehorns you into taking a big brick of Sea Guard as sort of a foundational piece in your core portion of the list, and I think he'll do an effective BSB sort of in that context, and then he gives the unit fire and flee. I mean, fire and flee without faint flight is an extremely dangerous prospect that you should be very wary of, but there's possibly some situation out there where you do want to use fire and flee somehow. So I mean that's just an added thing, I guess. Going from ballistic skill 6 to ballistic skill 7 is not a massive break point. You're hitting on 2s anyways, and then it's just sort of the reroll. I guess his big advantage over a noble is that he could take 75 points of magic items versus the 50. So that's really good. And if you have a specific item build in mind, I mean that could be useful. The noble, however, is 20 points cheaper. I believe he could still be your BSB in this Army of Infamy, and then he has better mount options if you're not taking him in that unit of Sea Guard, or yeah, he has better mount options. So yeah, I think this guy struggles a little bit to find a role in the army aside from being the BSB in a unit of Sea Guard. I mean, you can mount him, but I think I'd rather have a noble on Griffin than this guy, frankly, if I'm going to mount somebody. So yeah, I don't know. I think he's going to struggle to find a role outside of the BSB in the Army of Infamy, really. Okay, so that was that. I'm going to do the next one. Let's talk about the Stormweaver. So the Stormweavers, just to put something to bed right away, do not have their own bespoke lore of magic. What they do have is access to dark magic, which doesn't show up anywhere else in the High Elf sort of roster, but they don't have their own specific storm magic lore. So the Stormweaver is an 85-point caster. That's movement 5, weapon skill, ballistic skill 4, strength and toughness 3, 2 wounds, initiative 4, 2 attacks, leadership 9. It starts as a level 1 wizard, which could be upgraded to a level 2 for 30 extra points or a level 3 for 60 extra points. It cannot be a level 4. The Stormweaver comes with dark magic, elementalism, or illusion. It could be mounted on a unicorn, which we're going to cover shortly after this, and it could take up to 75 extra points of magic, 75 points of magic items. Comes with elven reflexes, Ithalmar weapons, Lore of Safari, and Val of Ages. So basically just the stock standard slew of high elf rules and nothing else. Yeah, I think this guy is all right, but I think he's outcompeted if you had the option by the other elf mages that are available to the army. He loses the ability to reroll a cast each turn, which is obviously a big negative for when you want to get that spell off. I mean, the three the spell lores that he has, like elementalism is great. Illusion is probably one of the best lores in the game, so that's great. Dark magic is like it's 2 good spells and then 4 stinkers. So yeah, you're probably not going to take that unless you have something again specific in mind. He is, however, kind of like a level 1 that can take 75 points of magic items, so you can maybe do something with that. Problem is though, when you take him to be a level 3, he's only like I think 10 points cheaper than the Archmage, and then he doesn't have the reroll, and he doesn't have 100 points of magic items. So yeah, I think if you could have an Archmage in this Army of Infamy, you would never take this guy. I'm a little bit disappointed that he doesn't have anything cool to show for what to show that to bring to the table. He's just basically a stock standard wizard, essentially that could ride a unicorn. What are your thoughts on this one, Andrew?
Yeah, I think you've covered it. Like, it's cool that he unlocks dark magic for high elves. But realistically, he has nothing special or unique other than that to himself. Like, yeah, I guess he gets access to a unicorn, but big fucking whoop, which you'll see when we look at it. um, I mean, he's level 3 is not the worst, but it's not great either. And that really jacks up his price. I guess as a scroll caddy with his 75 points of magic items, like maybe he'll have a purpose. But he's gonna struggle to be like anti-magic, and realistically with this army you're probably gonna be not taking dark magic, or yeah, you'll want elementalism or illusion to sort of support your Sea Guard and whatever. So like even the stuff that's good in dark magic, I don't think it synergizes well with this list. Even though I think dark magic has its place, I think it's a half decent lore.
Yep.
But I don't think it's a good fit for this army. So it's kind of unfortunate that he's their only access to magic.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think like what you want out of dark magic is I think is it Word of Pain, where you reduce strength and toughness of a target by 1, which is helpful in like a super low strength army. But I mean that's the one spell. You may as well go elementalism, like Plague of Rust will do wonders for this army where you struggle to get high AP. Everything's basically AP1 in the army, so being able to use that's great. And then elementalism, as you all know, has just some good spells in there, like TMPing or travel mystical pathways on a massive block of Sea Guard. I mean, that already has a bunch of movement shenanigans, is just also good. And then illusion will sort of help you lock down some of the big Griblies that you cannot really deal with, and potentially have your 2 Merworms charge them for -2 strength after. So yeah, you're right, Andrew. It unlocks dark magic, and dark magic in general is fine. I think probably the army is going to get more out of elementalism and illusion, though. Yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts on the Stormweaver?
I'm incredibly confused as to how it costs 5 points more than an elf mage while not having Lilia's blessing. Like
It's
just right off the hop.
It's the Sea Guard Garrison tax, man.
Well, and then on top of that, my Outcast Wizard starts at 45 points. So it's already 40 points more expensive before getting anything. It's intense.
Does your Outcast Wizard have weapon skill 4 though? I'm joking.
No.
Fucking around.
But my Outcast Wizard also miscasts harder than anything known to man.
Sure, but I'll take that for. What about Mortis Engine? That has pretty shitty miscast too. But yeah, no, I agree with you. It's not great.
It's just
Does it have access
even
to 75 points of magic items?
the Outcast Wizard, yes.
Yeah.
The Outcast Wizard, like everything's the same except it just has worse leadership and like doesn't have lore of Safari.
Yeah,
But like I'm
'cause,
Which
looking
is
at this
not a
and I'm
great
like
lore. Yeah.
lore of Safari is basically 40 points, is what
yeah.
this is telling me.
I mean, I think there might be some play with like your magic item selection because high elves do have some good like arcane items and stuff.
Yeah,
But
but I mean, the
that's
Falcon Horn is
basically it,
pretty
and that's like
convincing.
trying to be generous.
Yeah,
Oh no, I even think the Elven Mage is like the Elven Mage for 80 points is also just very expensive. I was just like my damsels are only 60 points. So
That's elf
like
tax though. Everything in the elf lists are like
I guess that's what
stupid.
I'm getting at. Just very, very taxy. But yeah, like again, it's your only source of level 3. You're definitely gonna take one.
yes.
But at the same time, I look at it and I'm like, I've never seen a more convincing argument for taking a dragon mage before.
Agreed. Yeah. Well, it's the Dragon Mage is not great either. But yeah, I mean, I think you're taking this guy because you don't have access to archmages, and that's basically it. Otherwise, you wouldn't take him.
Yep.
Okay, so we are not fans of the Stormweaver. Okay, Andrew, maybe we're fans of the Unicorn. Why don't you read that mount option for us?
No, we're not. For 35 points, you get a mount. It is movement 10, weapon skill 4, strength 4. It adds +1 wounds to whatever's riding it, initiative 5, and 2 attacks. It turns the person into a monstrous cav. It has hooves and horn, which count as a hand weapon. Gets armor bane 2 on the mount only, armored hide 1. Cool, I guess. Beguiling aura, which I'll go into in a minute. Counter charge. That's gonna be a bad day. Magical attacks. Stomp attacks 1 and swift stride. So beguiling aura. Enemy models must make a leadership test before making any rolls to hit against the model. Against this model during the combat phase. If this test is failed, only rolls of a natural 6 will hit. That's kind of cool, but there's
But no one
enough.
ever fails it.
Yeah, no one's gonna fail that very often. With either high leadership enemies or general leadership auras or warband. Chances are they're not gonna fail this.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. At least the poor Stormweaver has a mount option that he can run around with. I think he's probably going to end up with Illyrian Reavers if that's the case. But yeah, it's not much to write home about, frankly, for the Unicorn. +1 wound, sorry, on a T3 chassis is just not worth very much. And then Beguiling Aura, I mean, it'll lead to some funny Warhammer moments when the Chaos Lord on Dragon charges you and rolls a 12 on leadership and then just flubs all its rolls. But I mean, that's not real. As you guys have pointed out, that's not something you can count on in any way, shape, or form. So it'll be fun when it happens. But yeah, I'm not. I mean, he's not a big selling point for the army. Yeah,
Like, I think the Unicorn itself, it's a half decent mount for 35 points, but it's unfortunate it's locked to this character. Like, if you'd be able to take it into like the main list as like a
yeah,
mount for your prince, or even just the actual like the good wizard, you might see some more play here. Like movement 10's pretty gross, counter charge. Like you can probably make a really cool prince fighty character with this model or with the unicorn, but unfortunately it's locked to the wizard in the Sea Guard list.
yeah.
I think that's just a general thing. Like, I don't think I've seen a unicorn mount that wasn't a wizard. Like, even for the high elves, I think it's only their wizard that can take it.
I
Or
think it's
sorry, the
only
wood
this
elf.
guy can take
Sorry,
it. Oh
I
yeah,
think
what else?
I think back in the day you could.
fair.
like same with in the Dark Elf list, the Dark Pegasus used to be like the go-to for your hero level fighty guy, and now he's locked just to the wizard character.
Yeah, it's only the wizard for the wood elves that can get unicorns too, and then same with Bretonia.
Yeah.
Right. So unicorns will only associate with mages is what we're going at right now.
Yep, I
Correct.
guess so.
Okay. All right. So let's leave that one behind. Ryan, why don't you wrap it up with the centerpiece here, Ishaya Vess.
Yes, Ashaya Vess. So movement 5, weapon skill 7, ballistic skill 7, strength 4, toughness 3, wounds 3, initiative 7, attacks 3, leadership 9, 170 points. It's kind of a shame that she only gets toughness 3. I think it's an elf thing, isn't it? Not getting better toughness on the characters. She can be included in a high elf army made using any army composition list that includes the option to take one or more units of Lothern Sea Guard.
Wow.
Yeah. It doesn't even say what type of character she counts as, so she just exists. She's
Regular
infantry. She
infantry.
comes. Sorry?
She's regular infantry.
Oh no, I mean like Cecil Gaston is like counts as a baron. So like
Oh, I see. Okay.
you know if there's any limits or anything. She has a hand weapon, heavy armor, a shield, Mathlin's ire, and a warbow. She possesses a commanding voice, Ilthmar weapons, naval discipline, rallying cry, strike first, precision strikes, and valor of ages. So her commanding voice increases her command range by 3. So she has a command range of 12. If she is your general, she has a command range of 15. Precision strikes, Sea Guard unit joined by Vess improves their EP by 1. And then her Stabby Stab Trident is Strength plus 1, AP minus 2, Armor Bane 1, magical attacks. During the combat phase, enemy models must re-roll a single successful to hit roll made against the wielder of Mathlin's ire. It's just kind of super underwhelming. Like I feel like she's gonna get challenged by like a duke and just like impaled and die.
Any fighty character is gonna wreck her.
But like I get like the support aspect, like she's there and she's enabling more units with her leadership and stuff. I just and increasing their AP by 1 is also cool. But like I'm just not like again, she just leans more into the build Sea Guard Death Star option. It's not even really a Death Star. It's like build Sea Guard Star Killer base. Like
Points sink. Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That was a great base. All right.
All right.
I was just trying to think of what the wish.com version of a Death Star was.
Exactly. Yeah. A satellite killer base. Yeah. Okay. Andrew, what are your thoughts on Ishaya Vess?
She's not great. You're probably gonna see her in every Sea Guard list just to boost the Sea Guard's AP. Her leadership bubble thing is okay, I guess, but we're talking high elves here, or elves in general, where their leadership I don't think gets below an 8 to begin with. So like really it's not that big of a buff. She's definitely no core hill, which is unfortunate. Yeah, I don't know. She's okay, I guess, for what she does.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm having a hard time finding any positives really. Like she's kind of expensive. And yeah, like the main thing is you're taking her for that +1 AP to the Sea Guard unit that she's gonna be camped out, and that's
Yep.
basically it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it, Andrew. You hit the nail on the head there. Like she is basically she exists to be a source of AP1 for the big Sea Guard unit that this army list tries to get you to take desperately. I mean, on the other hand, you're paying 170 points for AP1, which is like really really pricey. As you said, also Andrew, there she's 5 points less than Core Hill. Let that sink in for a second. There, Core Hill, like just a really good beat stick character that can be mounted, that has like different ways to be played. And she's 5 points less, and for that you get AP1 on the unit of Sea Guard. And I guess this is like a good moment to discuss this, but I was thinking about this list last night and trying to build some sort of army list for it. But there's no damage output here, So I made this theoretical unit of 30 Sea Guard with a BSB to get its rules as well as the banners, some of the cool banners that come with High Elves, and then Ishaya Vest to give it AP1. And then you have this sort of monstrosity unit that comes in at about 800 points. And that's doing on average 0.5 wounds a turn if they can all fire on a dragon, or kills 2 Knights of the Realm turn. And admittedly, I didn't put the Razor banner on them, which you probably will when I did that math. But like for 800 points, it's just not enough output. And like paying 170 points to get AP1, it's just like throwing good money after bad type situation here. I'm not a big believer in the big in the massive Sea Guard brick, and I think it's a bit of a trap. She doesn't have any use realistically outside of that brick. So yeah, I'm not rating her very, very highly. I mean, commanding voice also, like what is that rule even effectively going to do on the battlefield? So yeah, I'm not. I'm certainly not sold on her at all. Yeah, I guess we're all not really impressed by Ishaya S. Cool model though. Cool model though. So she'll be fun to paint. There's that. Okay, so wrapping up, that was all the units. Let's talk just overall, starting with Andrew. Are there any standouts here in the list? What do you think you'll see competitively, either in this list, the Army of Infamy specifically, or in the Grand Army? And then what are your disappointments out of the 6 unit entries that we covered?
Yikes. The only thing I think you might see competitively is people trying to get some traction out of the Merworm. And I believe he was unlocked for the base list, correct?
Yeah, he
Or
is.
no?
If you take a unit of Sea Guard, yeah.
So I don't think, competitively speaking, you're gonna see a lot of Ship's Company or whatever this list is called, Sea Guard Garrison. Just because, as we've stated before, like it just lacks a lot of damage output, and it doesn't have really any answers for those big scary units. So like Pegasus Knights, Dragons, any sort of high toughness, high armor armies. So it's going to struggle against dwarves too.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Big time. And any of it's like sort of heavy hitters, chances like the Merworm or characters in this list, the Chariots, even the Phoenixes, like they're just gonna get picked up by like cannons and your enemy's high strength stuff, and they won't have a lot of support internally from this list. So yeah, the only thing I think you're gonna see in a competitive scene will be Merworm sort of in the baseline elf list as like a replacement for the Frostheart, and maybe there's more play there with like making use of its ability, the
Minus
enfeebling
1
cold
strength. Yeah.
ability.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's kind of unfortunate, but I still think the list is cool, but you have to be in a very narrative setting, I think, for it to work, and maybe even just be playing those sort of missions that GW put out to kind of represent like this and the Wolves of the Sea army like fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my overall thought on this list. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I think just to pick up on your last point there with the Merworm, like I don't disagree with you, but I think he's going to be outcompeted for points a little bit. Like the High Elf Grand Army in the Grand Army context, it has like 1,000 points. So sorry, you got 1,000 points of characters, obviously, and then the characters are extremely solid in this book. With a lot of really good items, a lot of really good mount options. So most of the time, your list is going to come in at close to 1,000 points of characters, and then you have 500 points of core. And then are you really going to be taking half of the remainder, like the 500 points that remains of your army, to slap a Merwin in there? I'm not convinced you will, because it also entails that you have to take a freaking unit of Sea Guard somewhere else, which you probably aren't taking in most high elf competitive lists. So I'm not convinced you'll see it. All that being said, in terms of all the units together, I think Ship's Company is an effective option. You can only take it, I believe, in the Army of Infamy, and you will for sure see it in the Army of Infamy. And it's probably the best unit in that overall lot, just because it's point effective and it just could do things for you. Merworms, I think, are a bit of a disappointment. They're still playable, and I think in the Army of Infamy, as I mentioned earlier, you're going to see them because there's just not a lot of Strength 6, and that is such an important breakpoint in the old world right now. The Sea Guard Garrison commander has like an edge case role as a BSB probably, and then if you have a 75 point, item build that you want to do with him, that's about it. The Stormweaver, as we've discussed, cannot shine a candle to all the other Elven casters in this book, which are just better than it is. Unicorn is fine, and then Ishaya Vess, I think we all sort of agreed, is a disappointment. So thanks Studio for coming up with 6 different unit entries for this Army of Infamy. That's excellent, but I don't think any of them are really going to be rocking the boat competitively. I don't think. And just to harp on that a little bit, I don't think this list has a ton of play in a competitive meta. I think the only thing that it will sort of do well into is like a low toughness, low armor save army, like take all comers type list. And that's basically it. So, it'll do well into elves that have no dragons and some empire lists. And that's most of what you'll do well into. Sorry? Your peasant
do well
Bretonians?
into my peasant.
Yeah, it'll do well into your peasant Bretonians. A lot of low strength shot into low toughness bodies. It'll do fine. So if you don't take any horses, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, that's that. I'm a bit disappointed. What about you, Ryan?
You kind of stole a bit of my thunder here, but I was just going to say is like, no one's going to take this army competitively. People will take it to competition, but no one's going to take it competitively.
Yeah.
Therefore, like, none of it matters.
Sure. Yeah. It just exists.
Which, and like, as I said at the start, it's not a bad thing that you can make a hyper thematic naval landing party army. It's just you're making your life 85 times harder trying to play the game with that army because of structural problems with the game we discussed in a previous episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but at least it doesn't get to preemptively shoot you like it did in 6th edition.
You know what? With the rules and the units that we have, I wouldn't be upset if it could. Frankly, it wouldn't break anything.
That's
I mean, I agree with you. I think, and the studio, I mentioned it the last episode, but the SDS, so JTY mentioned it. Like the reason why they're producing these army lists is for theme first and foremost. And I think they've achieved the theme aspect of it. I agree with you, Ryan, that they don't eminently need to be hyper competitive lists for the Armies of Infamy. But I think with, if we looked at Crace that we covered last episode, if you look at something like Wolves of the Sea, which we're both collecting, like both of those are extremely thematic lists and also can be played competitively. Probably not as strong as their Grand Armies, and you're taking a few hits on the chin there to be able to be extremely sort of have that big narrative going and have some cool, funky options that you don't see otherwise. But like, they're still very well playable. You know, all three of us went to SBOT in Toronto with 50 something players, and the second ranked guy there had a Wolves of the Sea list.
Yep.
So like, it's possible to do both, I guess is my point here. But they only did one with this army list. Yeah.
Like, I'd be a lot more excited about the Sea Guard Garrison commander if he could, ride on a dragon.
Sure. Yeah, sure. Sure. Yeah, I guess if you're building this list, it's going to turn out you're going to have like two nobles on griffins, some flying chariots because they're just solid all around pieces, 3 units of ship's company as skirmishers, just replacing those Empire archers, a big block of Sea Guard because you don't have a choice, and then a pair of merworms and a freaking Stormweaver, and that's the list. But it's not exciting. Like there's not much there. There's no oomph there, you know?
Yep.
Okay, all right. So let's look at this list just has 2 magic items available, that are, hard locked to this list. So Andrew, why don't you take us through the Blade of Seagold?
Yes. The Blade of Seagold is 40 points. It's a close combat weapon. It gives you strength +1, AP -1, magical attacks, multiple wounds D3. That's pretty sweet. The Blade of Seagold may only be taken by models in a Sea Guard Garrison Army of Infamy. Not too shabby for a 40-point model or 40-point item. Multiple wounds D3 is always nice to have. If you put this on a Sea Guard Garrison commander who's already strength 4, you're going up to strength 5. So you'd be strength 5, AP 1, with 3 attacks, weapon skill 6, and multiple wounds D3. Like, that's not too bad for 40 points. It's kind of like like an Ogre Blade Light.
Yeah, the poor man's Ogre Blade, yeah.
I kind of like it. Like it's decent. Anytime you can get multiple wounds, like that's sweet. It has a little bit of built-in AP, so it's not completely gonna get shut down by armor. And it helps mitigate some of that high elf strength, slightly with the strength +1. So yeah, not bad for 40 points, I think. What about you guys?
Yeah,
I mean,
Ryan?
I'm in the same spot. Like, budget ogre blade, better giant blade, whichever way you want to go. Like,
Yeah.
it's a decent weapon. Like, to go back to something I was getting at like a while ago, honestly, this is probably what the ogre blade should have been.
Yes.
Like the ogre blade just shouldn't exist, and this should. The only downside to it is it's locked to, at best, a character with a 75-point magic item allotment. So, like, you can get this cool sword, and then he's got like 35 more points he can spend, and that's it. But it's a solid all-around weapon. Slap it on a dude on a griffin and just run around stabbing people. It's a good time.
Yep, and that's exactly the build I would go for, Ryan, is putting this on a guy on a griffin with 75 points. You could take this weapon, which I think is a perfectly usable magic weapon, and there are so many bad weapons spread across all the books in this game that this one is quite decent. So I'm happy. You slap him, as I was mentioning, on a griffin, potentially with the you could use the dragon helm also to sort of increase your armor save, be a little bit tougher there. So there's that. But I mean, yeah, I it's a bit hard to find the right sort of platform for it, but it's not terrible on a griffin running around, sort of just being annoying for your opponent to deal with. I think it's a perfectly playable magic item, magic weapon. So after that sort of unanimous, half-hearted seals of approval from all of us, let's move on to the next one, which I think is probably going to be a little bit more contentious, and that's the Amulet of the Tempest. So the Amulet of the Tempest is it can only be taken obviously in the Sea Guard Garrison army. So whilst within 9 of the bearer of the Amulet of the Tempest, enemy wizards cannot add their level of wizardry to their casting rolls, and that's for 50 points. So this one is interesting. So at first glance, everybody sort of wants to take this thing to shut down all the level 4 casters that are running around. And I get that. I think my issue, especially in this Army of Infamy, is finding the right platform that you could put this on, drive it into the middle of the enemy army, and then survive. Survive long enough for it to make up its value and out 50 points, and the character you're invariably going to lose doing that. So yeah, that part I think is harder to do. I guess an edge case, sort of how I would potentially try to run it, is a dude on a chariot, a sky cutter with ambush. Maybe it's maybe a way to do it, but it's going to be really hard. Like if you had access to dragons and princes, you could use 50 points to take this item, then take a Seed of Rebirth, take a Talisman of Protection, the Dragon Helm, and just toss this guy right in the middle of the enemy's line, and then shut down their magic essentially by removing all their caster levels. Obviously, that's not an option here, and that Griffin is not nearly as survivable. So yeah, I think it's just going to be really hard. It sounds good on paper, but it's going to be really hard to use effectively in game. What do you think, Andrew?
I like it. It's unfortunate the range is 9.
Yeah.
My head canon for using this would be take your cheapest character, give him the Shadow Warrior rule, take a little squad of Shadow Warriors and ambush right in the back of Cleary's mortuary cult bubble and shut down all of his bullshit fucking magic.
Poor guy. We're always shitting on him on the show, eh? Poor guy.
He knows why. That'd be pretty devastating, but otherwise, it's like you pointed out, it's gonna be hard to get this in a position where it's gonna be very useful in shutting down those wizard rolls. And unfortunately, it doesn't help with you getting spells off. It's only the enemy casting rolls, so their dispel attempts won't really be affected, right? So you're still a level 3 versus probably a level 4. But it does make your defensive dispelling way better.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And it's not at least it's not an arcane item, so it doesn't need to be taken on a mage. So there's that. But
Yeah.
because the high elves do have good magic arcane items, that as we discussed last episode there. But yeah. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this bad boy?
Yeah, I'm in the same boat where it's cool, and the only way I can think to employ it is to put it on a noble that's either got Shadow Stalker honors or on a Great Eagle or something, and
Yeah.
just suicidally fly them into the enemy where they then die and not be useful.
And give
And
up 200 points. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Whereas even if you could take a Phoenix as a mount in this army, you could put a noble with this thing on a flame spire Phoenix or whatever, run around with, because then the Phoenix is giving you heavy armor and a 5-up ward save. And you could fly over people and light them on fire and shut down magic. I don't know. There's options, but I just don't see a whole ton of
Yeah. Usability in real life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I want to make it work, but then because it's locked to this army, it's just okay. Nope.
Yeah.
Only use case. Slap it on Dragon Mage.
Sure. impetuous Dragon Mage, so it heads in a completely different direction than where the enemy's casters are.
I mean,
So
it could
that's
still
fun.
only charge to its front. So
Yeah, fair. Okay, fair. But yeah, I guess I was thinking as you guys were talking there, like if the Infernal Puppet can have a range of 24 inches, then this thing should be more than 9 inches of range. I would be willing, looking at the rest of the army list and considering it's locked to this Army of Infamy, I would be fine with it being 24 inches of range. It's stronger than an Infernal Puppet on the math. Like I'm convinced, I haven't done the math, but I'm convinced it adds up to more. But still, like this army doesn't have much going for it. If it could just shut down magic on the other side using this item reliably, that would be at least something useful going for it. But that 9 inch range, I think it was Andrew that was harping on that. There is just it's brutal.
Yeah, like at least make it 12 or something.
Sure,
but,
sure, but
but why? When you can spend, wait for it,
Oh, here we go.
355 points of Dragon Mage.
yeah, fair.
Level 2.
It's terrible. I think it's a pretty pretty accurate assessment on the state of this Army of Infamy when I say, if this thing was 24 inches and you could shoot before the game, it probably still wouldn't be super competitive. And
Yep.
I'll leave it at that. Okay, so moving on. Just final thoughts. Like I know we've talked about the Army of Infamy like throughout and stuff. So Ryan, just before we wrap up the episode, like again, I know the answer there, but it's in the questions here. Like, do you think this list has played competitively? How do you think it stacks up against the Warriors? The Creation War Host and the Grand Army?
So firstly, no, I don't think it has play competitively. Like it would be an extreme uphill battle to make this fight most of the heavy hitter armies that are floating around out there.
Yeah.
I would definitely rate it competitively behind both the War Host and the Grand Army.
Yeah. Surprise.
And unfortunately, like even on theme, like I've been sitting here like fiddling around trying to just like make armies that feel like a marine incursion. And the only thing I keep coming up with is like if you really want to make like a really weird like skirmisher like boat crew militia list, you could do that pretty well. It's really bad, but you could do it. But
Yeah.
even like trying to lean into like the Sea Guard theme, they're like an orphan unit in the army that isn't enabled by the rest of the army.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yeah. It's not right. Okay. I agree, man. It's not great. Andrew.
Yeah, like I like the idea behind the army, but the execution just isn't there for me. It really needs just some form of high strength attacks, or if they went in like a different direction and made the Stormcaller or whatever she's called like some super wizard, and this was like the magic list for the elves, but it just really falls flat for me. And it doesn't really hold a candle competitively to the other two lists that the high elves have access to, which is unfortunate. I don't know, Kevin. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I don't think this is competitive at all. I'm sorry, our good buddy Danny was really getting pumped up to play these guys competitively. I think the bottom's fallen out of that idea, and it's not really going to work out.
He already bought 1 billion fucking white lions.
Yeah. After
So.
conversations, he switched to the other Army of Infamy. So yeah, I don't think it has much play competitively. I think it would be a totally different world if somehow the better Army of Infamy has access to all the sexy high elf dragons and the level 4s. If this list had access to princes and had access to archmages, I think you would already be looking at a different direction, different discussion, just because they carry a lot of they patch over a lot of holes in the list because those elements are so good in the high elf list, but also because you could do things like shut down the magic phase of the opponent by just driving an unkillable dragon character in their lines and shutting down all their magic with the Amulet of the Tempest. Or, you could actually protect your big block of Sea Guard with some level 4 casters casting illusion reliably, stuff like that. So, I mean, not having access to those tools doesn't let you patch over those holes. So we're sort of looking at a ship here that's, metaphorically and realistically sinking very fast. So not ideal. And I think absolutely it is, a country mile behind the Grand Army and the Creation Warhost from a competitive perspective. So a bit of a a dropped ball from that perspective. Okay, so but wait, before we close out, I'm glad that it exists. Like, there's a cool narrative here. You can tell that the studio put some effort into coming up with. There's a bunch of rules. There's a bunch of unit entries, and that is 100% something that should be replicated throughout their future arcane journals and just Armies of Infamy in general. Like, it's not that it feels half baked; it just doesn't have the right tools to be able to compete. Essentially, is the problem. So. Okay, so let's wrap this one up. We haven't decided what our next episode will be, so don't hold your breath for that just yet. I want to shout out on my end some of the events that are coming up. So there's if you want to go to CHTT, the Canhammer Team Tournament, I know we have 2 individuals right now who are looking for a team. So if you and a buddy or just you alone are interested, reach out to us and we'll link you up with those people and can potentially make a little, mercenary team or whatever you'd call it to bring to the event. And then CTC, just a few weeks later there near mid-May, I guess. We had Denny on last episode. It was a great event. I was there last year, so I want to shout that one out too, and I'll be there this year. So those are my shout outs. Ryan, anything you want to shout out?
Basically the same things. I'll see you all around at our various events.
Perfect. Andrew, anything you want to shout out on your end?
No, I got nothing going on.
Okay, perfect. So, all right, listeners, thank you for sticking with us through this review of the High Elf Journal in 2 parts and the Sea Guard Garrison, which we're all happy exists, is the bottom line here. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next episode. Bye-bye.